Hey everyone! Today we're diving into something truly fresh and local, straight from the farm to your table. Ever wonder what real raw milk tastes like? Or pasture raised eggs elevate your breakfast? Stick around! We're here to support local farmers and natural, wholesome products.
There are no absolutes to garden. There are many ways. I offer you some ideas to help get started in your own garden dream. My name is Keenan, and I'm a professional gardener by trade. I want to help you garden step by step, present a variety of farming industries for inspiration, and help you find resources and supplies for your own garden needs. Be it in the soil, container, water, or air, I believe you can grow anywhere. Let's garden.
Now, let me introduce you to someone special. My longtime friend, Daniel Steele, owner and operator of Steele Farming here in Wellsville, Utah.
Daniel has been dedicated to raising healthy, happy animals, producing raw milk from his cows and pasture-raised eggs from his free-roaming chickens. In today's world, knowing where your food comes from is more important than ever. So let's take a closer look at Daniel's operation and learn why supporting your local farmer matters, not just for you, but for the entire community.
I didn't actually have much of a breakfast this morning, but I really like
Wow.
eggs. So good. But look at this, Keenan. Look at these.
You're just like
Look-
Gaston
look
off
how-
of Beauty and the Beast.
Look
Let me
how
see that.
look how dark those yolks are, though.
Holy moly.
You know, when the chickens are. But the yolk, that is like,
That's where it's
that
at.
is so good. Man, you want one?
I'm okay, Daniel.
My name's Daniel Steele. I'm just a part-time farmer here in Cache Valley. Well, we have pasture eggs and not pasteurized eggs, pasture eggs and raw milk. But yeah, look how dark that is. Those yolks,
Oh, yeah.
you know what I mean? So I like over easy eggs, really good. Anyway, you like egg?
Oh, I like eggs. I just like to have them a little more cooked.
Yeah.
I do love over easy. I can handle it. It's just when I'm driving over the canyon, I hate it when it spills on my steering wheel and seat belt. You can imagine, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I better get this last one to finish this one.
And what's the name of your business?
We just have a farm. It's called Steele Farming.
And can they find you on social media? You have a website?
Yeah, just steelefarming.com. I don't think it's up and running yet, but I think it's got where you can subscribe to our newsletter. So we'll go ahead and get the chickens out of here so we can milk the cows. I'll show you how we do that. I just grab a couple empty buckets. If you want to come look at this. We don't really grind any of the stuff that we have for our chickens, but we make sure that we give them some minerals that they can peck at. And this has got some salt and some humate. It's got some magnesium and calcium and all kinds of stuff that we've mixed in. And we add this to the cow feed when they come in to get milked. It's got over 80 some minerals and all of this stuff. And a lot of it's plant-derived minerals, so it's really healthy for the animals to kind of make sure they stay disease-free and kind of prevents issues that you'll have on the farm. So I go ahead and put a little bit in each one of these buckets because we have 2 different sets of chickens, and then that's probably enough minerals for them. And then we'll come over here and get the rest of their stuff. Usually what we do is we feed whole corn, and so we get this from Big D Ranch up in Boise, Idaho, and then Let me get a little bit of corn for these other ones. And then we do barley. So then this right here, oh, got some chickens laying eggs in here. We'll collect those a little bit later. And then this right here is peas, whole peas. So that's our protein source, because we don't want to use soy or anything like that.
So you mix corn, peas, and the humate into their feed?
Yeah, so I put their minerals in there. And so they got all their minerals. And then we got corn there at the bottom, and at the very bottom, that's where we got the minerals, right? And I put that in first because as we dump it out, it'll sprinkle on top of all the stuff. But yeah, see, the minerals are down there low. And so I'm just gonna set these eggs. We'll come collect these a little bit later. Come on, chicken. So. We just dump it out on the ground in a line. And then we'll just fill up their water. Good water. And this right here, Keenan, is a Walipini. So it's a sunken greenhouse.
And what do you have in here, Daniel?
Well, the chickens have kind of taken over possession of it, but usually in the wintertime we can grow all our greens in there. But there was so many weeds inside there. I mean, you're welcome to walk down there, but the chickens have kind of taken over. There'll be plenty of feather calcium for us when we want to grow some kale and stuff, but there was a bunch of weeds in here, and so during the winter we just put the baby chicks in here. And the bricks kind of help keep it warm during the wintertime when the sun comes through. And it's obviously not finished. But down here, we've got a pipe there. You can barely see the pipe. The chickens have kind of exposed it, that white pipe. So that goes down in the earth, probably another 4 feet below where you're at. And then we have a tunnel that will pick up some hot air and blow through that
So it's
pipe.
kind of like geothermal air.
So it's geothermal, yeah, exactly. So, but we've kind of let the chickens throughout the winter come in here. I mean, it was full of weeds in here, and the chickens have kind of cleaned it up for us, and so we need to come in and wash it all down. And in this winter, this is where we'll plant our greens. This right here is the start of our chicken coop. So it's not finished. We kind of have the cart before the horse right now with the chickens.
Oh.
But this is where we're going to put our roosts and our roof. And this section here will be the chicken coop. And then, so we'll have to evict them out of the Walipini. And then this is their strawberry field. And I've actually kind of impressed. We thought the chickens were going to come in here and just devour the strawberries, but they actually haven't touched them. So
they take care of your pest problems though, and the
yeah,
strawberries
we don't
still
have any
stand?
grasshoppers around this area.
So Daniel, would you say these chickens are the answer to your grasshopper problems?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we haven't had any. I mean, you can literally, when grasshoppers are really strong, you can walk over to out in the field and there'll be grasshoppers like crazy. As soon as you come over here, they're gone. I mean, the chickens keep them at bay, kind of in a circle from wherever the chickens are. So that's been really helpful. And we haven't had really an issue with grasshoppers messing with the strawberries, but the chickens, you see this chicken right here, see, it's going out there, but it's actually not touching any of the strawberries. It's just looking for bugs. It's been kind of nice. Over here, we grew what they call whoppers. They're a bigger strawberry. modern varieties, they grow with, through tissue cultures. They're disease resistant and have all these benefits that they have, but they were not as hardy as this variety over here. This is a 100-year-old variety developed by a guy by the last name of Benton. And they're called Bentons. In fact, you can't get these at a typical store. In fact, when I bought these, the guy that I got them from said that the Benton family wasn't going to continue producing this particular strawberry. They're not very big strawberries. They're smaller strawberry, but they're incredibly sweet. And when you cut into them, they are red all the way through. I mean, they're super antioxidant rich and just super delicious.
Is this what you offer at your store?
So yeah, we do this with the local farm here, with the Johnson Farms. We sell these with them. And then we of course sell some at our farm store, but we have more than what we can actually get rid of at our farm store. So we work with the Johnson Farms, and that's been really good actually. We have pretty dense clay soil here, and the strawberries do really well. And if you notice when I was pouring this, that's why I put the minerals at the end. And then I'll make sure I dump the minerals in these buckets so it doesn't get lost. And they'll pick at there's a little bit of salt and there's some other stuff in there, and they'll pick at that and get their minerals through that.
Hey, you've got a rabbit.
We've got the neighbor's rabbit. They kind of randomly hang out here. And then the mineral stuff towards the end, I'll put on these buckets here. So
how long does your feed last till you have to get more, Daniel?
We usually buy about a year's worth, about 3 or 4 ton of feed.
And this is for both your chickens and cows?
Yeah, so we only milk once a day with our cows, and we'll milk here in a second. We have 2 cows that are lactating. We have some cows that the calves are sucking on, and that's one of the things that we do is we leave the calves on their mom for a month. And we think that that's pretty important because we sell raw milk and we're all about good biology in the milk. And when you take a calf off of its mom, the day that it's born, the likelihood of it getting its mom's colostrum, and because it takes about 2 weeks to establish those good gut bacteria in the calf's intestinal tract. And so we like to keep the calves on about a month before we pull them off. And so these calves, which is very uncommon for anybody that's doing dairying, they typically will take the calf off the day that they're born, but we like to keep them in there. And honestly, if you're in a really tight area because we're not really after production, we're after taste and quality. So in every state, Keenan, kind of has their own rules for selling raw milk. Utah historically has always allowed people to sell raw milk through what they call a cow share program. It's more of like a loophole in the law, I guess you would say. Kind of like if you were in a state that wouldn't allow raw milk, you could sell it as like pet milk or something like that. Currently in Utah, you can sell raw milk and get inspected by the state. We currently are still working on that. So this is to satisfy their requirements. You have to have 3 separate rooms. You have to have, 2 gray water drains, 2 separate rooms. So you have to have a room to hold the milk, and a room to bottle the milk, and then you have to have a room to milk the cows. And so this is actually going to be where the cows get milked on this section over here. Along here, these will be stalls for the cows to get milked. Come in this way and come out that way. And then the milk is just going to be milking in buckets and then dumping into the milk tank. And then once it's chilled, I believe you got to get it down to like 36, 38 degrees within like an hour or something to meet the requirements. And then after that, you can bottle it and put it in bottles.
Okay.
And so it's basically a grade A type facility, even though as raw milk, you're not technically grade A, because the grade A is a federal thing, right? This is what we're working on in the process of doing. But right now we're on an exemption rule that they have. If you're not producing so many gallons of milk, then you can be considered on the exemption. And when I first was selling raw milk, I didn't have any labels or anything, so I got a cease and desist letter saying, hey, you can't do this. And so I was like, oh, well, what do I got to do? And so I had to put a warning on my label, saying, hey, this is not inspected by the state. raw milk, no matter how carefully produced, can be unsafe or whatever. You have to put that on the label, and then you're compliant. Then you can be put on the exemption. But when you get over a certain amount of gallons of milk, then you have to switch over to getting inspected by the state. So that's how Utah operates. Every state's going to be different because federally, it's still the federal government in their mind consider raw milk poison, right? In their mind federally, it's for the states to make their own rules of how they want to do it. I think Idaho has the most raw milk dairy farms than anywhere else in the United States, but it's because they have very lenient laws, and I think it's worked out really well for them. In fact, I know several farmers that sell raw milk in Idaho, and they just have to do a TB test on all their cows once a year. But as far as being regulated heavily by the state, it's very minimal, and so it's kind of nice. And I wish Utah would adopt some more of those types of laws, but it is what it is. So I could do cow shares, but the thing about cow shares is you can't really just go put milk out in the shed. You have to have contracts saying, hey, this is basically sharing the ownership of the cow in exchange for milk.
And how much do those shares usually cost right there?
Well, they'll be anywhere from $4 to $10 a gallon. The contract doesn't say, hey, you're paying for per gallon, you're paying for the feed, you're paying for, room and board, somebody to milk and stuff like that. So it's an actual sharing type program.
Is it paid up front?
Yeah, most people pay monthly
Monthly?
through cow shares. Yeah. And before I started this, I used to do it when I had just one cow. We did cow shares and actually did it to where people would come and milk the cow themselves. So, and that was fun for some people to do that, but sometimes that's not the best way to do it though. We'll go get the stuff to milk the cow. So this is kind of my milk setup right now. And this was clean. And I leave this open so that it airs out really well. And I just make sure nothing's in there and I close that up. But this is the milking cart that I use currently. It's a very simple system. It's just got 2 Harbor Freight vacuum pumps that are connected together with the water collector to separator to make sure that the water doesn't go in here and fill up the oil, so I don't have to change this out every day. So that helps. And then this is just a basic milking system. Squeezes the teats on and off on each side.
How did you discover this device?
This system here actually came with a cow that I had bought from a guy that had it, and it was a Chinese milker, I guess, that he had bought out of China. And the vacuum pump failed, and so he just added 2 Harbor Freight vacuum pumps to it, and it's been working pretty well. The milk that I can't sell, or the colostrum, I just freeze dry it. This is in the process of freeze drying a few gallons of milk right here, and then once it's freeze dried, we put it in jars or bags, and then it keeps for quite a long time. That's what we do here with that. So I just hook up the power here, and then I keep this bucket over this just so the chickens don't come in here, because this is the food that I give to the cows. And I'll make sure they got a little bit of the minerals too. Sometimes in the summertime, the cows don't eat a whole lot of this because they're spoiled by all the grass and alfalfa out in the field. And so they actually won't even really like to eat the corn. They prefer the grass out in the field. They love it. We'll go grab the 2 cows and get them milked.
There's a lot of steps, wouldn't you say, to get that final product and taking care of the animal?
And for me, honestly, because I'm a part-time farmer. I work during the day and come home and do this. And for me, it's like therapy. You know what I mean? I don't know. There's something about monotonous work that you get time to think, and sometimes even critically think about life. And sometimes when you're so busy, you don't have time to do that. You know what I mean? And I think that that's kind of one of the big issues with social media, is because when you're doing farm work, you're present with yourself and with the animals and with the work that you're doing. And so many people in today's world spend so much time in the past, and now our younger generation spends so much time in the future. And social media is just a combination of that. I mean, you're looking at past posts that somebody made in hopes of making a post yourself in the future. And so you're being pulled to the past and you're forgetting about the present. And farm work for me The reason why I call it therapy is because I get to be present with myself and with the animals and with my children and with my family. And to me, it's therapy. It really is. So the whole point of this trellising is to kind of eventually, when we get it filled through, trellis these trees along here to kind of give her a sound break and more privacy. So that's kind of the idea of that. If you look at this guy right here, this is our bull. See how his horns go back? And look at his big ears. He's half Holstein and half Gur, which is an Indian breed. This is Dolly squared.
Dolly, you are beautiful.
And I just leave their rope thing on them, you know, so I always have a rope to grab them. And they all lead pretty well. Some of them, it took about a week to get them trained to lead, but cows are fairly stubborn. Come on, girl. But it's amazing how easily domesticated cows are. Easy there, mama. Okay, come on.
All right, 2 for 1.
Yeah, we'll milk these two right here. All of the cows we have are what they call A2 cows. When I was reading the research on it, most of the research about A2 comes out of Australia. About 25% of all cows in Australia are A2 cows. Historically, all cows were A2, and they claim that there was a time when, during a lot of trying to breed for higher production cows, the casein protein, basic protein in all mammals, the casein protein added an extra amino acid, making it a little bigger but more complex at the same time, so harder to digest. I believe it was 98% of all milk in the United States is an A1 milk, but A2 is more of what you would consider like the older genetics of cows were all A2, so it was a less complex protein. And they have found that that protein is very similar to like a goat protein and some of these other like sheep and stuff, and so it's easier to digest. So people that have issue with A1 milk tend to do okay on A2 milk. And you kind of have a double negative. I mean, if you have a A1 cow with that larger protein and you also have it pasteurized, so there's no enzymes to break down that. I mean, all the enzymes are there, but they're denatured, and so they can't help you break down the protein. Then over time, people build up an intolerance to the milk.
So is that what causes the intolerance?
So that's kind of the theory, is that that's what's happened is a lot of people that are now drinking almond water and soy water and all these other nut waters because they can't tolerate real milk. It's because of the A1 protein, and for generations of people drinking pasteurized milk, and they don't have those enzymes anymore, so their pancreas can't really help them out digest that milk, and so they build up an intolerance. See, she's already, just from us bringing her in here, she's already starting to release her milk for us.
Wow.
Now I'm just going to grab some warm water. So she'll just sit there and she's eating her minerals. I mean, she's got a mineral lick tub out in the field that's got molasses that kind of attracts them to eat that. But this right here is the most critical part, right? Make sure we get all the dirt and grime off the teats, so we don't add any of that to the milk. But some of those calves out here have already sucked her. I mean, her teeth aren't dirty at all. I mean, she's a fairly clean cow, honestly. Yeah. So there's the milk right there. And then, so that's fairly clean. I just flip this on here.
So these things you're putting on, are they just like some suction?
Well, you can see inside there, they got a little thing that will clamp on the teat. And so you'll notice that it kind of shakes back and forth. You can see the milk flowing through there. See that milk coming right through there, right into our little pail.
Does it have like some sort of sensor that you're getting close to full so you don't overflow that?
This here, it does have a little ball. So if it gets too full, it'll shut off. But we're not gonna, we will never fill this up all the way. So we'll just, I mean, we maybe get, like I say, we're not really pushing the cows to make a ton of milk. So she'll give us, you know, just over 2 gallons. You know, if we were feeding her a ton of corn silage and really pushing her, we could probably get more milk out of her. But like I said, we're looking for nutrient dense, good tasting.
Practically milk. Then she's getting nutrients right from the get-go from your mix right there, and then just out in the pasture. And
yeah, I mean, minerals are super important. A lot of people forget that, but in the veterinarian world, we're 20, 40 years ahead of conventional medicine when it comes to nutrition. Like, for example, spina bifida. There used to be cases where animals were born with spina bifida, and pathologists and veterinarians clear back in the 50s and 60s were able to prevent spina bifida so that calves, sheep weren't born with spina bifida. And they've been able to prevent that with folic acid, folate. And that's why when you go to the store and you go buy food for your cows, there'll be 40, 50 minerals in there. You'll go down to the grocery store to go get baby food and won't have any minerals in it. Don't add anything to there. It'll be peas, corn, or whatever in there, and then no minerals. You go to the farm store, it'll have peas, corn, whatever else, and then it'll have a whole list of minerals in there. And those minerals are there to prevent disease. So minerals are super important.
What stands out versus, you know, pasteurized milk?
I mean, we've been drinking milk for thousands of years. This idea of pasteurization, I think, was originally to preserve, and because there was Pasteur guy, the French guy that was distilling wine, and he was wanting to use that for wine preservation, you know, to pasteurize it. It was never really intended for milk initially. Through a series of marketing campaigns, at least here in America, people were convinced that that was the only way to go. But historically, I mean, for literally thousands of years since cows have been domesticated, we've been drinking raw milk. If you really think raw milk is poison, if that's your belief, recently there was a study that was funded by our government and the Canadian government where they looked at all these cases of people getting sick with pasteurized milk and raw milk, and they found that there were way more issues and even deaths related to people having pasteurized milk. I mean, raw milk, through their own study, showed that it was safer. But of course, they still say, hey, you know, raw milk is still unsafe. But if you believe that raw milk is bad for you, if that's your belief, I guess if you had a really, really sick cow, I guess the milk could be bad in some sense, right? But for me, where I'm doing this, I see the cow, like I'll know if the cow's sick. I'm pretty close to the health of the cow. I could tell instantly. I mean, if the cow was having mastitis, when I was doing those first squirts of the milk, I would see chunks coming out of the milk. Obviously, we didn't have that. I mean, you would know right away you would have a swollen udder. Like when this, you can see how this udder has gone way down in size. Mm-hmm. If she had mastitis, she would have a big knot in here in one of her udders. I can sit here and tell. I mean, when you're running 1,000 cows through a milking operation, it's hard to know that. And so on big scale, the pasteurization just becomes the way to do it. But on a small farm scale, it's easy to produce good milk. The main issue, if you honestly believe that raw milk is bad for you, then it's like, okay, well then why don't you tell every mother that has a baby that before they nurse their baby, they need to pasteurize that milk first. You know what I mean? Or if you have a dog, can't let the dog nurse the pups because you got to pasteurize that milk first. I mean, raw milk, we've been drinking it for so long. You know what I mean? Like the fact that it's federally, like at least here in the United States, is recognized as a literal poison that needs to be literally boiled to death before you can eat it, to me, I think is not conducive to the small farmers, not conducive to the health of people that need to increase their gut bacteria. And I can't tell you how many people that have been helped through increasing their gut bacteria with the help of raw milk. I mean, it can help support your gut. So, I mean, if you're drinking milk that has none of those enzymes, like we were talking about earlier, proteins can't break down, then they ferment in your gut. And as they ferment in your gut, they will gas off gases that will cause bloating, right? Yeah. So when your digestion system does not have the bacteria to break down those proteins, then yeah, you'll have bloating and gas and irritable bowel. You'll have all kinds of stuff going on in your gut because those proteins aren't breaking down. When you add the biology back in and the enzymes, then you can break those proteins down, right? And that's the cool thing about having good biology. I mean, we're just starting to get back into that. You know, people getting into fermented foods. Back in the 1800s, that was commonplace. Nobody canned their food. It was all through fermentation and that increased bacteria. And in some ways, even with your produce, when you're fermenting, the bacteria can produce vitamins. They can't produce minerals, but they can produce certain vitamins your body needs. Just like cobalt, you know, helps with the vitamin B12 in your gut. There's a lot of these bacteria that produce vitamins in your gut to help with your energy levels and to help with your immune system. And so the bacteria is super important. If you don't have good gut bacteria, you'll have all kinds of issues. And it's unfortunate because in our conventional medical world, when you go in there, they don't know what to do. It's like, oh, well, they'll do an endoscopy, a colonoscopy, they'll send a camera down trying to figure out what's going on, and they can't determine the issue. And the issue isn't cancer, it's more of a bacterial thing that's missing from the gut. And in nature, Keenan, from what I understand, she's about done here. In nature, there's no real void in nature. So when a good bacteria is killed, then a bad bacteria would like to take that spot of where the good bacteria was living. And so when you kill all the bacteria in any product, for example, raw milk, if we kill all the bacteria, you know, through pasteurization, then you've created kind of a cesspool for bad bacteria to grow.
So if we had
Come on, girl.
enough of it reintroduced back in our system, that would probably make a dramatic change in how we digest our food.
For sure. She wants to go out and eat some grass. We'll let her. She won't go too far.
Is this what we mean, like throw her out to pasture?
Yeah, exactly.
Always
We just threw
that.
her out to pasture.
Is that their version of heaven right there?
They love that. I mean, you notice how she went right for that chunk of grass there. Come on, girl. Well, she doesn't have a whole lot of milk in her because one of the calves out there has been stealing some milk from her. She doesn't have a calf out there, but she lets other calves suck on her. So.
And this cow's name is?
This one is Alice.
Alice.
And that one was Dolly squared. And her teats are really clean because the calf's kind of been sucking on her.
Oh yeah.
So I'm really just taking the saliva off from what the calf's sucking on her.
Just suction, just goes right on. I bet you like that, Daniel. I bet it would work the hands if you had to do each one.
That's the other thing is a lot of these cows anymore, they're not bred for having really big teats because having a big teat is just more prone to getting cut or something like that. A lot of the cows are bred to have shorter teats, so it would be really hard to milk this cow by hand. They breed them to have smaller teats so that there's less chances of them getting injured, or getting cut. And so to use your fingers, if you were to milk a cow by hand, for me, I would need a teat that would fit there where I could milk it out. There's some people that could actually milk a cow faster than a machine. If you had a big enough teat where you could just really squirt it and come it out, this is the way to go, in my opinion.
So it just goes through these tubes, through this bowl. I noticed like you have some caps on the bottom. I'm guessing that's to clean it out. Got these tubes and they run right back into your milk machine. What would you call this milk machine again, Daniel?
I would call it a jerry rig, a farmer rig. It's just kind of been parted together. I mean, you just need vacuum, right? Once you got vacuum suction, then you can really make anything work for a milk machine.
So could you tell us, Daniel, how you got into this business? What was the inspiration behind it for you?
For me?
Yeah.
I think it's kind of twofold. I think down deep as a kid, I always wanted a milk cow. I grew up on a beef farm and worked on a ranch up in southeast Idaho, and I was always trying to convince my dad to get a milk cow. And I don't even know why I wanted a milk cow. I just know that as a kid I wanted one.
Really bad.
Really bad, and I never got one. And so when I got married, I don't know how I convinced my wife to get one, but somehow that happened.
How much would a cow cost these days?
Cows' prices right now are incredibly high, and that's typical. When feed prices are low, cows' prices are typically high. The first cow that I bought, I think I only paid like $1,000 for it. This cow right here, we paid close to $2,500 for this cow. So they're not cheap.
What's their life expectancy?
Most dairy farmers commercially, they will have a cow before they cull them. They only have them for maybe 7 years,
Wow.
8 years tops. But for me, where I'm milking once a day, and this cow would probably, I mean, she's 4 years old, 3 years old. There's some small dairy farmers that have cows that live up to 20 years old and they're still milking. When you're really pushing a cow and trying to get as much production out of it, they tend to go downhill very quickly, you know, after the 7th, 8th year. But on a small scale dairy farm, I mean, you could easily get 14, 15 years out of a cow, easy.
So I guess then that brings me to the other question. What's your view? Because I know farming, at least commercially, the name of the game is increased yields, production. So what's your take on that versus sacrifice of the animal, or is there a better way?
And I don't believe that cows were made for us, or you know, that we're made for the cows. Kind of see this, you know, cows are made for us in that sense. So, but I do think we need to respect cows and take good care of them. But I think anytime that you are shooting for high production and quantity, then you tend to decrease in quality, right? And I think that that's across the board in any industry. When you're shooting for just high production, then the quality is not something that you're looking for. And unfortunately, in most commercial operations, it's the same thing with the reason why we have a huge nutrient crisis in all of our soils across the United States. The government put out a huge warning almost back in the 60s where, hey, our soils are getting depleted because we're using so much nitrogen and chemicals and we're not building up the soil again. And so a lot of big commercial farms, I think what they showed is like in broccoli, if you were to have like a cup of broccoli, like the 1950s and today, it would take almost 10 times the amount of broccoli to get the same amount of calcium as it was, you know, 70 years ago. We have depleted our soils. And so because of this direction of quantity, high production, we've lost a lot of quality. When you go to the store and you go get any type of produce, it might look pretty, but there's hardly any nutrients in it. So when I started growing strawberries, that was the first thing I noticed was I thought, man, I've been lied to my whole life. You know, when you go buy strawberries at the store, you almost have to dip them in sugar and just to make them taste good. And there's not much minerals in sugar, right? Maybe you could add some molasses that might help. There's no density for nutrition in the produce that you get at the store because for a plant, you can get a plant to produce seeds for the next generation with 3 or 4 minerals, like nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and a little sulfur. You can get production out of your plants, right? But if you want really high nutrient dense food and give that plant its full genetic potential to where it can produce more vitamins and absorb more nutrients, because if there's minerals in the soil, it'll absorb them and we'll use them for, you know, immune defense, for maybe producing their own insecticide or herbicide. I mean, because plants have those capabilities to do that, but if they don't have the nutrition to do it, then they don't do it. And so in our commercial way of doing things now is we use herbicides, we use insecticides, we just give the NPK, we just do all these things to get high production to make the bills, and because everything's about bushels per acre and tons per acre, but farmers aren't paid on quality. I mean, for me, on a small scale, I'm a very small hobby farmer than I'm a real farmer. Right? This is a part-time job for me, doing this little milk here and some strawberries here. But for me, with the little customers that we have that come and buy our stuff, they're not after quantity. They're looking for quality. And so for me,
that's your niche right there.
That's the niche, and that's how I get paid. And so for me, I want to spend the time to make sure that the soil that I have, that I'm growing things in, is rich in nutrients. That's what people want. And I think it's trending, honestly. I think there's a lot of people that are starting to realize that, hey, the food that I've been eating is not filling me. It's not satisfying the biological needs of my body. You know what I mean? I mean, we have a huge health crisis here in the United States, right? And it all stems back to basic biochemistry, nutrition, what we're eating, what we're putting in our mouths. And so I think, to me, I would consider this really cheap insurance, right? Eating really good food.
These guys that are coming to your farm, they're willing to pay that extra dollar.
I know a big one down south, Redmond. They have quite a few cows, but they're one of those bigger ones that are inspected by the state. But I think they're up to like $14, $15 a gallon for raw milk.
Wow.
I mean, that's expensive, but I've got family that lives down there, and they say that when they bring the milk in, there's a line like clear down the street just waiting to get the milk. I mean, it's crazy. Someday we'll be able to whistle and they'll just come. I doubt it though.
I'd love that.
Cows are a pretty chill animal. We'll go get that milk out and take it down to the shed, and we can go show you the shed. I just coil this through here. It's just easier just to leave these halters on here.
Interesting. So you
like
can
that.
so you don't have to go and put it on each time.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think the cows in their mind, they think that they're half captured when you leave that on there. As soon as you take it off, they feel a little more sense of freedom, and it's harder to grab them. But just leaving it on there helps to go get them.
Okay, so these are your jars. I'm guessing you sanitize those right there?
Yes.
How do you sanitize them?
You just run them through the dishwasher. We like to use vinegar to do it like a second rinse at the very end. And the reason we like to do vinegar is because vinegar, it's got enzymes that help break down stuff. So it'll actually eat like the butterfat stuff that's might have a slight residue still on the jar. So it gets really clean with the vinegar. But yeah, you want to run them through the dishwasher first, and then
Vinegar, and then do you just rinse them out with water again?
hot water.
Hot water?
Yeah.
And then just let them air dry?
And then let them air dry, except these ones just got washed, and so I had to dump a little bit of the water that was left in there.
Wow, that milk is beautiful, Daniel. That is the
Oh, yeah.
yellow. Is that the colostrum?
So we have mostly Jerseys, but I do have that one Guernsey. And Guernseys, they produce a little more beta carotene in their milk, which gives it that kind of that golden hue to it. So, and any time a cow that's going to be eating off the pasture, they're going to have more beta carotene and more B vitamins in their milk. And so when you make butter or something like that, you're going to get a nice yellow colored butter. But just the fact that we milked a Guernsey and one Jersey, this is a mixture of Guernsey and Jersey milk. And the Guernsey milk is super, I love the taste of it. I don't know.
It looks good.
You'd rarely find a Guernsey cow in a commercial dairy farm because they're just a little harder to take care of. They don't do well in 2 feet of manure, I guess.
Oh, yeah. I was
So
going to ask that. Doesn't that affect them right there?
They don't do well with like that, and so they're not as a hardy of an animal.
Is that why the organic movement's kind of like a push right there? That they're out in the pasture versus in these.
Oh yeah, I think organic milk's obviously going to be better because they have a requirement that the cows have to have so much pasture per cow, and that makes a huge difference by keeping, pathogens away and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference. Can you imagine you walking in muck all of your life on concrete? I mean, when I buy a cow from a commercial dairy, that one that we milked came from a commercial dairy. And honestly, I love commercial dairies. I love going and visiting them. I love anything dairy. And you notice as we poured that, there was really no chunks or anything like that. I mean, if there was chunks, then you would know that there was some instance of mastitis.
It's got like a cream.
Oh yeah, the cream's already
thick.
starting to settle there.
This is about as fresh as you could get it right there.
Oh yeah, we have some people, from out of the country, not here in the United States, mostly from Central America, Mexico. they prefer to drink the milk warm.
I
They like it warm. And so I was like, man, why do they like it warm? And the other day I had a big gulp of warm, Guernsey milk, and it tasted so much sweeter.
really.
Yeah, I actually I really enjoyed the taste. And I was like, oh, that must be why they like it. It just tastes better when it's warm, especially, I don't know, most people that have been drinking milk from the store, that's pasteurized, and they come and drink this milk, it's really hard for them to go back and drink the milk from the store, because when you drink milk that's been, heated up to 160, 170 degrees and pasteurized in a big stainless steel pot, and it's denatured, there's kind of this weird metallic aftertaste in your mouth. Next time you drink some milk from the store, you'll sense this like metallic aftertaste. Raw milk, it's so creamy and it's just so full, like you don't get that weird aftertaste. I mean, it just, and you wouldn't know unless somebody told you, but go try some raw milk and then go try some milk from the store and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a huge difference.
How long does this last, Daniel, in the refrigerator?
The faster you chill this, the better, right? So we're going to put this in the fridge immediately and then it'll be ready to sell. We're on the exemption rule, but technically we need to get this chilled down to like 38 degrees within an hour. So we'll put this in the fridge like that and then get it chilled as fast as we can. But milk, if we were to put like some lemon juice or some kind of a, where for like making cheese and pulled the protein away, then cheese can last 2 years, right? The fats. But the milk, the biology is going to immediately start wanting to break down in the milk. And so the faster you can get it chilled, the longer you're going to preserve the milk. And honestly, it's kind of an interesting question because milk doesn't technically go bad. It just changes into a different form. I mean, if you read some old journals, back in the day, people would eat a thing or drink a thing called quark, which is milk that was milked and just left over the counter overnight, and it would kind of curdle a little bit. And people just love that. I mean, that was a common drink back in the day, was quark, and some people would add some maple syrup to it or some mango or some kind of a fruit juice to it and make kind of a yogurty type drink. In a lot of countries, that's really common. I think in India, that's a common drink where you let the milk just age a little bit, you just overnight, and then mix some other stuff into it and then drink it. And then, because then you're allowing those good bacteria to start to grow, and so then you've got a more rich probiotic drink. As long as you can keep, bad bacteria away from the milk. If you're familiar with Weston E. Price Foundation, Sally Fallon, I think she had presented some research to some government agency where they were actually taking E. coli and injecting it into raw milk and then showing that after an hour it was undetectable in the milk. Because the bacteria, the good bacteria, would actually fight the bad bacteria. You know what I mean? So when you kill all the good biology, you're more likely to have milk get infected with bad bacteria because there's nothing to fight off the bad bacteria. You see what I'm saying? So there's that too. But honestly, it just comes back to just, if your cows are healthy and things like that, you should be okay drinking raw milk. So we're just gonna put them in this fridge here. This is where I've got some milk that we can take down to the fridge that's already chilled down. This is colostrum that we're gonna freeze dry.
Where it's showing the ring up, Daniel, that's the colostrum?
That's mostly fats here, but this is colostrum. This is like a second milking of colostrum.
Okay.
So there'll be a little bit of stuff, throughout all, but you got your fats, colostrum milk, and then the colostrum fats.
Got it. So the colostrum's
this is
on
a
the
second.
bottom
This is a
level.
second milking. Usually, you
Got it.
colostrum in the first 3 milkings when a cow has a calf, and so this kind of a second milking. I think the ones behind here is a third milking. So there's really no colostrum in that.
Gotcha.
So
That is cool, Daniel.
what we'll do is we'll just take these.
You're literally now the milkman, Daniel.
Oh yeah, my exercise for the day, Keenan.
You don't need to go to a gym.
I don't know if that would work well for me.
So this is the farm store?
This is it. So the kids put a lot of the eggs in these things. These are eggs that they collected a little earlier today, but they're not washed, so they'll keep a month even outside of the fridge.
Now I heard that if you don't wash them, do they last longer? Is there a benefit to washing or not washing the eggs?
If they're really poopy, then yeah, you want to wash them.
Yeah, you want them clean, right?
Oh yeah, you want to wash the eggs. If they're fairly clean, then they kind of have a protective coat on them, and so there's really no need to wash them. Some, like in France, they don't wash their eggs. Most European countries, I don't think, wash their eggs. They don't even refrigerate them. I lived in Belgium for a good 6 months, and washing eggs was not a thing over there, really. I mean, they still had them in the fridge section, but a lot of times they'd just be on a carton or a pallet, like in the middle of the store. They weren't refrigerated. And they wouldn't refrigerate their eggs because eggs, when they come out, they have a protective coating and they can last for 30 days without being refrigerated. But it's just kind of commonplace here in America for us to refrigerate our eggs. And so we do that. This is the label that we use. It's got the warning on it. So just like that, we have to have that label on there.
How did you come up with the name Steele Farming?
Steele Farming?
Yeah.
Well, that's our last name, Steele. And then I guess we're still farming.
Still farming.
I guess I'm still farming.
You're still going.
Yeah. Still farming for you, Keenan.
Yeah.
So we'll have to get more of these for some of these, but we can do that later. But we just tie a string around here. Just cut these.
And what made you decide this type of string right here?
It was really cheap.
Yeah.
And earthy. I guess earthy is kind of
yeah, it really ties well with your milk product.
We used to use yarn, but this is a little more consistent. And I actually kind of like the smell of it. It's got a really nice earthy smell to it. So then we just have to have this label on here to be compliant.
Now, how did you get your labels? Is that just something you printed out? You had like special card stock, ordered it in?
No, I just printed them out, Keenan, like a generic template. Yeah, this is just to meet the requirements.
That's what they make you put on there.
Yeah, that's one of the requirements here in Utah. When you're getting inspected by the state, then you have to meet the requirements. Yeah, oops, sorry. I'll hit you there. These right here.
So as long as you have that label, there's no issue by the state of Utah for you to sell the milk, pretty much.
So as long as we have that label, we'll have to go down and get those other labels for those other milk. Get that. For those three, we're missing a few. We'll have to go print some more out. Yeah, you can fit quite a few in there. When we have the strawberries, we'll add some strawberries in there. We need to make more of this, but this is just a healing cream that's got some hemp seed oil, more of a facial cream.
Oh, okay.
And then this is just honey.
This is from Idaho right here?
This is when we had the bees up in Montana.
Oh,
so
Montana.
This is clover honey out of Montana.
Wow, that is very beautiful. This is your price list right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually is pretty reasonable. So you give them the option to either do Venmo and then to leave cash.
Right down inside here. Right down at the safety box.
This is self-serve. You're open Monday through Saturday, 7 to 9.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for taking your time to interview. You have quite the operation, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah, well, thanks, Keenan. Farming's a really fun thing to get into. I really enjoy it. Like I said earlier, it's kind of a therapy in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean? It's just, I think you have a lot more respect for farmers that go through so much and put effort into making food. And I think that the more you understand where good quality food comes from, I think really the more appreciation you have for that food. And I think that we need a little more appreciation in our world today, more gratitude. for farmers. They do a lot.
So we're here at Daniel's farm store, and I've picked myself up some fresh raw milk and some pasture-raised eggs. And let me tell you, these are good as it gets. This milk's incredible. So creamy and pure. If you're looking for whole natural foods, Steele Farming is where it's at. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what farms you would love to see featured. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.